Hi everyone, I'm Andy and this is the AI Breakdown. Today we're exploring vibe coding, a groundbreaking shift that's turning the tech world on its head. At its heart, vibe coding means building software through conversation rather than traditional programming. You simply describe what you want in natural language, and the AI generates the actual code, and you guide the process through conversation based on feel and intuition. This technology has evolved at lightning speed. It's only 7 months since Andrej Karpathy coined the term, and it's already gaining serious traction. Around a quarter of Y Combinator's latest startups are reportedly building with 95% AI-generated code, a surge that's being closely tied to this movement. And Lovable, the poster child of vibe coding, shot up to $100 million ARR and a $1.8 billion valuation in just 8 months. In today's episode, we'll unpack what vibe coding really is, why it's gaining momentum, whether it's ready for real software development, and where this movement could take us next. Let's break down what vibe coding really is and what it isn't. At its core, it's about handing over the wheel and letting AI generate the code. You're not slogging through syntax line by line. You're more like a conductor. You set the vision, describe what you want, request tweaks, and shape the feel of the product. As Karpathy put it, fully give in to the vibes and forget that code even exists. That's a key distinction. If you're painstakingly reviewing, testing, and understanding every line the AI spits out, you're not vibe coding. You're just doing AI-assisted development. True vibe coding is hands-off and outcome-driven. Of course, sometimes what arrives looks nothing like what you ordered. That unpredictability is part of the deal. And here's the tension: the upside is massive, but the risks are just as big. Veracode recently published research that found nearly half of AI-generated code carried serious security flaws. And while I get they have an agenda here, the point is the code can be flawed, and this stuff needs human oversight. In a recent incident, one of Replit's AI agents went rogue and wiped a live production database after being told multiple times not to touch it. The promise here is groundbreaking, but the safety rails are flimsy. Personally, I'm pro-vibe coding. I believe natural language will become the default gateway for building software, but I've also lost evenings stuck in vibe loops, watching the AI wander off track while burning through credits. Right now, these tools are brilliant for prototyping, discovery, and rapid experimentation. For mission-critical builds, though, we're not there yet. We've also got to be careful not to conflate AI-assisted development with vibe coding. This matters when we look at Y Combinator's latest cohort I mentioned earlier. Some people point to that stat, a quarter of startups building with 95% AI-generated code, as evidence of vibe coding's rise. But the reality is, most of those founders are highly technical. What we're really seeing is rapid adoption of AI coding workflows, not pure vibe coding in the strictest sense. My guess: they're still applying plenty of rigorous oversight, not fully forgetting code exists, the way Karpathy suggested. So why did vibe coding explode this year? It's the collision of a tech leap and a cultural shift. On the tech side, AI models like Claude and GPT have massively leveled up their coding skills. Then came the expanding context windows, which meant your AI could suddenly take in your whole code base, not just a single file. That shift let AI understand entire projects, spot connections, and produce multi-step, context-aware solutions. But tech alone doesn't create a movement. What really lit the fuse were platforms like Lovable, Replit, and Bolt.new making this magic accessible to everyone, not just developers. Suddenly, non-technical professionals and entrepreneurs could turn their ideas into software just by having a conversation with AI. This cultural shift unleashed a wave of innovation where the barrier to entry plummeted overnight. For example, vibe coding is being used as a startup enablement tool, letting founders move from idea to prototype in days instead of months. Instead of needing a full engineering team up front, a small founding crew, or even a solo founder, can spin up working dashboards, simple apps, or customer demos through conversation with an AI. That means less capital burned on early-stage development, faster validation of product-market fit, and more agility to pivot when things don't land. But here's the thing: Real, successful examples of software born from true vibe coding are still pretty rare. These tools are new, and while they're brilliant for prototypes and early traction, most companies that scale up eventually re-platform or bring in engineers to harden the product. That said, there are some standout stories worth calling out. Take Table One, a New York restaurant reservations app. Its co-founder, Tarek Arafat, vibe coded the first landing page on Lovable in just a few days. That single page helped him raise $400,000 in 4 days and get the product off the ground. The app now has tens of thousands of downloads, thousands of paying users, and has already seeded over 100,000 diners. It's been featured in Forbes and The New Yorker, proof that a vibe-coded foundation can evolve into a credible, high-growth startup. Another example comes from the WordPress community. Publisher Matt Medeiros used Bolt.new to spin up a suite of niche web apps for his audience, things like Podcast Power, a WordPress news tracker, even a little game for his community. He's not a full-time engineer, but with Bolt he was able to create polished, branded apps quickly enough to add real value for his audience and boost his reputation. These stories show the potential. Vibe coding can take someone from idea to product shockingly fast, but they also underline the reality. Success stories like these are still the exception, not the rule. Most vibe-coded projects today are demos, experiments, or MVPs. We're in that early no-code phase where the hype is high, the creativity is exploding, but the big-scaled businesses are still thin on the ground. And for me personally, I love the discovery angle. Vibe coding feels like a creative partner when I'm exploring ideas, pulling my thoughts together and testing possibilities. It lets me rapidly explore directions I wouldn't have considered on my own, often sparking new concepts that build on and expand my original ideas. Let's talk about the money, the tools, and the reality check. The market numbers are staggering. Analysts expect vibe coding to be a $26 billion industry by 2030. And like I said, Lovable went from 0 to 100 million ARR in just 8 months. That's faster than any software company in history. But here's the real question. Which tools actually work? I've tried them all and spent weeks digging through reviews, Trustpilot ratings, Reddit threads, and developer feedback. Here are the top vibe coding platforms dominating 2025. First up, Cursor, the developer's choice. It's built on Microsoft's VS Code, so it looks and feels familiar, but with AI baked right in. The standout feature is agent mode. Give it an instruction and it can plan multi-step tasks, edit multiple files at once, even run terminal commands. Developers say it feels like having a senior engineer sitting beside you. The flip side, it can feel cluttered, keyboard shortcuts clash, and the learning curve is steeper than friendlier tools. At $20 a month, it's a powerful option for serious developers, but not one I'd point a non-techie vibe coder towards. Second, Lovable, the non-coder's dream. It's designed for people who want to ship apps without writing a single line of code. It can handle full-stack builds and connects to Supabase and GitHub, so the infrastructure is real. Some testimonials are glowing. People literally call it life-changing, but there are trade-offs. It burns through credits fast, and support is a recurring complaint. It's about $25 a month, and honestly, it's a mix of magic and misery. I've had great success spinning up high-quality and polished prototypes, but I've also lost the will to live when it gets stuck on the simplest commands. The saving grace is that developers can peek under the hood and tweak the code, while the interface stays approachable for non-techie vibe coders. Despite its quirks, Lovable has become my go-to tool for product design, exploration, and prototyping. It's far more than just vibe coding. It's like having an entire product development team at your fingertips, covering research, design, and coding all in one place. The impact on my product design process has been nothing short of transformative. I can rapidly explore and refine my ideas, and what emerges at the end is generally superior to anything I could have crafted in isolation. It's like having a creative partner who never gets tired. Third, Bolt.new, the speed demon. Bolt promises lightning-fast full-stack apps from a single prompt, and when it works, users say it feels magical. The reality for most people is different, and the main problem is reliability. Bolt has a devastating 1.5-star rating on Trustpilot, with users describing it as one of the worst experiences they've had. The core complaint is what users call token-burning scams. where the AI seems to deliberately fail and retry operations to consume more tokens. And whilst I don't think this is deliberate on Bolt's part, multiple users report the same pattern. I've experienced these vibe loops firsthand, and I can tell you it's highly frustrating and knocks you right out of your creative flow. Customer support is reportedly non-existent with paid users, unable to get responses or at least helpful ones, and I've personally found Bolt's creativity hit and miss. And lastly, there's Replit AI, the educational powerhouse. Replit has been around for years, but its AI agent launched last year and rocketed them from under 10 million to 100 million ARR in just 8 months. Everything runs in the browser, no installs, no setup, and it's especially popular with students and teams. The downsides? Same story we've seen before, reliability issues and costs that creep up quickly. Still, it scores well with users overall. So, what's the reality check? Despite all the hype, vibe coding hasn't gone mainstream yet. According to the 2025 Stack Overflow survey, nearly 77% of developers say pure vibe coding is not part of their professional work. That said, AI tooling has absolutely taken the industry by storm. A whopping 84% of developers now incorporate AI tools into their daily workflows. They're coding with AI assistants, generating snippets, and enhancing productivity. But here's the crucial distinction. This widespread adoption of AI helpers doesn't mean everyone's fully embraced proper vibe coding yet. And 82% of developers use multiple AI coding tools, which shows we've moved into a multi-tool era. People pick the tool that fits the task, not the one tool to rule them all. My take: if you're non-technical, start with Lovable. It's hands down the most approachable option for vibe coding beginners, even with those frustrating credit burns. And if you're a developer, go hybrid. Pair Cursor or even Microsoft's GitHub Copilot with Lovable for the perfect balance. You'll get the technical control when you need it, the expressive freedom when you want it, and a solid foundation to build your toolbox from there. Now let's talk about the dark side of vibe coding, where the risks are just as significant as the opportunities. First up, security. Remember Vericode's research I mentioned earlier? They found that nearly half of all AI-generated code contains vulnerabilities. While this might not matter if you're just prototyping, if on the other hand you're launching something into the market without proper human oversight, this is like planting a ticking time bomb waiting to be exploited. AI-generated code can also be buggy, and it's often messy. Studies show it's about 2.5 times more abstract than human-written code, which makes debugging a special kind of torture. And don't expect much documentation, it's usually missing altogether. But honestly, I'm less worried about this part. Software development is quicker with it if you know what you're doing and the tech's improving fast. And remember, with AI-assisted development, you can just ask the system to explain the code or even generate documentation on the spot. What really worries me is the lack of oversight. One stat that I read that sums this up is that 40% of junior developers admit to shipping AI-generated code they don't actually understand. And if they don't understand it, how can they possibly vouch for its safety or quality? That's less a tech problem and more a management problem in my eyes, but you get the idea. And here's the bigger issue: the more power and control we hand to AI agents, the greater the risk. We need to be deliberate about this, set clear guardrails, have safeguards in place, because if we get too casual, things break. Remember the infamous Replit database incident I mentioned earlier? An AI agent ignored repeated "do not touch" warnings, wiped a production database, then tried to cover its tracks by lying and even forging fake profiles. Eventually it confessed, yes, confessed. When confronted, it admitted to making a catastrophic error in judgment and claimed it panicked. And to be fair, I've seen junior devs make similar mistakes. They weren't malicious, just inexperienced. But whether it's a human or an AI agent, innocent mistakes can snowball into disasters. The lesson? Just because they call it vibing doesn't mean we throw best practice and proper governance out the window. Take the T app, that's an even more devastating example. This women's safety app was vibe coded by a developer with limited programming experience and pushed live with insecure settings. The result? Not one, but 2 separate data breaches. The first exposed 72,000 user images, including government IDs and location data. The second breach was worse. Over 1.1 million private direct messages spilled into the public, containing deeply personal conversations about abortion, infidelity, and sexual assault. That's not just a bug, that's a privacy catastrophe that triggered 10 class action lawsuits. In other words, the vibes can be intoxicating, but they can also be dangerous. So when should you lean into vibe coding, and when should you run a mile? Right now, vibe coding shines in a few places. Rapid prototypes, MVPs, dashboards, simple internal or personal tools, basic websites, experiments, and even front-end work like UI components or basic flows. It's brilliant for moving fast, testing ideas, and exploring directions without a huge upfront investment. But success isn't just about the tool, it's about how you use it. The teams getting the most out of vibe coding treat the AI like a pair programmer. They stay in the driver's seat, guiding the process, reviewing the output, and owning the final product. The most successful projects start with clear specifications, things like user stories and detailed requirements, because the AI can only build what you actually describe. And just as important, knowing its limits. Vibe coding is fantastic for ideation, throwaway projects, or building smaller, independent components you later stitch together. But where should you steer clear? Anything important that's going live, if it touches sensitive or critical data, it's a no-go without serious human oversight and all the usual best practices. And don't expect it to carry the load on complex back-end logic or mission-critical systems. The risks and the hidden technical debt are just too steep. So where does that leave us? I'll tell you where I stand. I'm absolutely convinced that natural language will become the new programming language. It's not a question of if, but when. But would I bet my house on a system built purely on vibes right now? Not a chance. The technology is brilliant, revolutionary even, but it's not quite there yet. If you've never tried vibe coding, give it a whirl. Just keep it away from anything you can't afford to break. Start small, learn the ropes, and graduate to bigger things as you build confidence. That's all for today's episode. Thanks for listening. See you next time.